Hello everybody, my name is Pepper.
And my name's Niran, and welcome to the AOR Talkshow.
Here we go!
Right then, hello there everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the AOR Talkshow. It's me and Pepper once again here for you today for episode number 6, I think the 6th AOR Talkshow that we've done, just going over stuff that's happened in the league over the last week. And obviously with no Xbox around at the moment, no PC around, it's very much a PlayStation dominated ting. So today we're giving you a review of the 4th round in China, and also then a preview of the 5th round, which is in Germany, I do believe, as well. And obviously last time we brought you a review of the 3rd round, which was Austin, which was, in all honesty, an incredible race. Changeable conditions, action, overtakes, crashes, left, right and centre. This week we had more of a controversial race than an action-packed, oh my god, entertaining one. If you haven't seen the race already, a link to it will be in the description below for you to go and watch before you inevitably find out some spoilers from this video. But yeah, as I said, it's a pretty controversial race, all dry though, in China, wasn't it?
Yeah, and as we predicted on the facts last week, China still hasn't given us any wet racing whatsoever, but that didn't mean it wasn't a good race. Williams, well, doing what we kind of expect them to do, getting pole position with Callum, so there's no point for us there on our predictions once again. But yeah, a Williams front row, which was followed by Hammer Time, then Mazda on the Ferrari, Brown, Pepper, Civilista, Professional, Prost and Philip. Prost, well, did you expect him to end up 9th on the qualifying, Niran?
No, I didn't, is the short answer to that. Didn't I? I said he was going to finish like on the podium in the race, I think, as well.
You said he was going to win.
Okay, well, no spoilers, but that didn't happen. That didn't happen. So I definitely got that one wrong. But Prost, he did so well in the social. He did really bad in qualifying in the social, so we were like, oh yeah, he's done bad in qualifying. We could still maybe, you know, challenge the Williams, but that wasn't necessarily the case. It was a 10-man grid for the race, and as we've said, Williams just dominated qualifying, and it looked as if it was going to be a straight 2-horse fight from lap 1, really, between both of them, and it was for quite a while. At turn 1, obviously, we saw Callum. You've heard that Callum took pole from Shane. But Shane actually took the lead back at turn 1. And the lead changed hands, not really in the first stint, but did change hands quite a lot through the race. It was a really good battle for the lead until we got halfway through the race. Behind that, there was lots of different incidents on lap 1 and lots of overtaking. Both the Ferraris, both the Saubers and Brown battling for 3rd for basically the first 2 stints. It was an interesting race, certainly the first half.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'd expect the Williams to be the only contenders for the win. I mean, obviously we said Prost, but after qualifying 9th, it wasn't really on the cards. But still, after the first few laps, the rest of the pack wasn't that far off. I mean, Shane did open a big gap after Callum and Hammer Time doing a having side contact on the hairpin twice.
Yeah.
But despite that, I mean, I think it was pretty balanced, but everyone seemed to be on their own pace a lot, so we didn't really have too much action in terms of overtaking, because everyone was just on their own pace, building the gap as they could. But obviously we had like the 2 Williams fighting for half of the race, and then Pepper and Brown and Mazda is fighting for the whole race.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the best battles, and Prost was in there for a bit as well. You know, trying to prove me right and trying to get the win. But yeah, the guys behind, you could tell they weren't probably going to win unless there was an accident in front of them. But they did, as you said, Pepper, they had good pace. Both the Ferraris and Prost, and also Brown as well. They weren't getting blown away by the Williams. They weren't like 40 seconds, off the pace by the end of the race, I don't think. But they did show pace. Unfortunately, towards the middle of the race, Prost in his Sauber, his wheel broke and he ended up spinning off and going into the barrier and then retiring. So we were left with a 3-man scrap, which was the 2 Ferraris and then Brown in the Mercedes for a while. And then there was an incident between Pepper and Brown, which sort of gifted Mazais third in the race. And that was a real theme of the whole race, was Mazais in the Ferraris managed to avoid all the incidents that were happening around him. On lap 1, he avoided an incident between Cebalista and Professional. Then in the middle of the race, he avoided Brown and Pepper having an incident. Then he managed to avoid Prost's spin as well. And he just had a very clean race and managed to get through it without any incidents. But yeah, as we alluded to a while ago, we had the battle for the lead. Shane, or Hammer Time, and Callum, or his unpronounceable gamer tag, they were battling for the lead until the halfway mark, and then it all changed.
Yeah, it was a late call from Callum getting the better run out of the hairpin at the end of lap 12, which ideally it's the lap you want to pit if you pitted lap 4 for primes. And it seemed that it wasn't really on the plans for the Williams team.
Yes.
Or apparently for one of the sides. And it kind of, obviously it helped the championship fight. So in that way we're happy. But it kills a bit the race for the lead, especially with Shane doing quite a few mistakes after the pits actually on the third stint. It was very unusual from him, and giving Mazais the second place effectively. And he was even under pressure from Pepper and Brown, thanks to his later spin at the exit of turn 4. So it was a very stressful. I think it's a good word to describe what Shane went through after the unexpected pit stop change for the third stint onwards. But obviously this is a championship, as Callum later said, so if you want to win the championship you need to make sacrifices and tough calls.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Whether they're in the same team or not, he's got to make the tough decision. I mean, what he did basically was overtake Shane right at the end of lap 12 at the hairpin, and then got a better run and just literally jumped in the pit lane. And that was, of course, the lap where Shane was meant to come into the pit lane, which meant Shane had to do an extra lap on dead tyres. The undercut worked beautifully for Callum, and he had a massive lead. And then, as you said, Shane then, I don't know whether he was riled by that or particularly angry, just afterwards. It was a bit of a multi-21 situation, or, you know, proper teammate rivalry actually. It was quite entertaining. But yeah, so Shane then made a few mistakes, as you said. It allowed Mazais through into second, again avoiding incidents, the Latvian, and then he made another mistake which allowed Pepper and Brown through into what was at the time third and fourth. But yeah, it was a very uncharacteristic race. I definitely think he let the Callum decision get to him psychologically, because of the mistakes that he made afterwards in the laps that followed. But he did manage to recover to third in the end, passing Pepper on the way into the pit lane and passing Brown out on track, which I suppose is a decent recovery. But of course Callum won the race, which means that he gained quite a lot of points on him in a championship, with Mazais sandwiching himself in the middle of the two Williams. He was the meat in the Williams sandwich. The rest of the race was pretty good. I tell you what, one person that I'm sorry if he's watching, but he's been pretty decent for the rest of the season. But one person that disappointed me in the race was Hammer Time. He didn't really seem to have any pace at any stage during the race. He was sort of well down there with Cebalista and Professional for a while.
Yeah, I mean, after qualifying third, he did have his issues with Callum at the hairpin and ended up, I don't know if making a mistake, but I think he did when fighting with, it was Prost, Pepper and Hammer Time one time, going for turn 1. I'm not sure if you remember that. Yeah. But it was a complete Sauber sandwich that time with Pepper in the middle. And at turn 1, I don't know, Hammer Time and Prost kind of lost it a bit and went wide at turn 1, which allowed Pepper to regain the position he lost. But Hammer Time I mean, you only finished 5 seconds behind Brown, but it was, I mean, in US, obviously, with his first podium of the season, he did very well there, and after qualifying third, I guess you would expect a bit more, but it's still, like, it's not the most amazing result, but I think it's a safe result for the Sauber, especially taking into consideration Prost failed to finish the race despite getting 1 point still. But I mean, I think maybe it wasn't his best track, or maybe he didn't felt comfortable with the tires or the setup. So I think one bad race, everyone has it. So maybe this one was hammer times.
Yeah. I certainly think so. He's been, as I said, he's been pretty impressive for the rest of the season. It was just a bit strange that he lacked pace, but yeah, maybe setup issues or just genuinely not liking China, which, to be honest with you, I can sympathise with. But anyway, yeah, Callum, we've talked about him, that he jumped into the pit lane when Shane was meant to, and he built up a bit of a lead from the undercut that he managed to get from that, and well, he maintained that lead and extended it obviously because then Shane had his incidents. We've talked about the podium. Callum winning the race. Mazais did manage to take second, held on to that, despite Shane fighting back towards the end, but he lost his momentum towards the sort of last 4 or 5 laps. And then it was Pepper, Brown, and then Hammer Time, wasn't it? 4th, 5th, and 6th. Pepper did actually have a penalty in the race, but that was removed after the incident with Brown, which was coming out the snail section. Just a little bit of contact between the two, both spun round, nothing major, but he did lose both of them quite a bit of time, and that's what allowed Mazais through to 3rd at the time. Hammer Time, yeah, we talked about him, he came 6th, and then Professional and Sevalista, the Red Bull and the Lotus respectively, who battled probably the entirety of the race. After their accident on lap 1, I don't think they were separated at any point during the race, but they managed to take 7th and 8th, with Philip Daring in 9th, and the only man to retire being Prost, who did manage to still pick up a point because we only had a 10-man grid for the race. He took 10th. In terms of the drivers that weren't there, Dan, F1 Dan in the Red Bull, he obviously still has his wheel issues, although they are fixed now. He was in the commentary box for China, but he should be back racing for the next race, and we were again missing both the Caterhams, who continue their pretty poor attendance. If they were at school, they'd probably be getting a letter home to their parents by now. But yeah, Vettel and Beloff not turning up again, which is a shame because they've actually shown decent pace when they've arrived, but yeah, they weren't there, but it was a very solid, and in the end, dominant win for Callum.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at the standings now, giving you a quick look at what's looking, and obviously the two Williams still maintain P1 and 2, with Shane now with only 11 points gap to Callum in 2nd, 20 point gaps to Mazais in 3rd, and 22 to Pepper. So the Ferrari boys very close to each other, only 1 point separating them, and falling a bit down. Hammer Time in 5th with 38 points, 29 off the lead, and Dan obviously missing 2 races, United States and China, 34 points behind, but obviously it's still fixable. I mean, he can still fight back on the. There's a lot of races missing. I mean, there's 12 races to go to the end, so if he really continues to deliver the pace he had, I'm sure he will turn it around. Followed then by Brown with 30 points, 3 points ahead of Professional, and then Prost, who failed to finish a race for the 3rd time running. So he only has 20 points now, 6 ahead of Sevalista, then Vettel and Beloff with 10, and then Philip in the end with 7. Niran, looking at the constructors.
Difficulties. Yeah, right, yeah, Williams are top, as I said, but didn't really know accurately. 32 points clear of Ferrari, which for a Constructors' Championship obviously isn't that major. Mazais taking 2nd in China certainly certainly making the deficit between Williams and Ferrari a lot more manageable, and Pepper obviously doing a good job to come 4th as well. 3rd place is Red Bull at the moment. They're 63 points off Williams. You've got to feel if Dan had been at the previous 2 races, it'd probably be very close to Ferrari, or yeah, very close to Ferrari, maybe even above them, if Dan had pulled out a very good result somewhere. But unfortunately for them, that's not the case, though he is, of course, hopefully coming back next time. Sauber in 4th, I suppose you could say the same thing about them as well. Hammer Time sort of flying the flag on his own at the moment in terms of consistency, with Prost getting that one finish, of which he came second, which just shows the potential the kid has in the league. He's only finished one race this season and he grabbed second in it, so hopefully he has a bit more luck when it comes to disconnections and technical issues. But Sauber sit fourth then, Mercedes in fifth, that's of course Philip Daring and Brown, of which Brown's got the majority of those points. Sixth are Caterham on 20, they're 103 points back of Williams, and they are 17 points behind Mercedes. And then we've got in 7th place Lotus, who are on 14 points. They are 6 points back of Caterham. So it's pretty close between 3rd and 4th in the championship in terms of constructors at the moment. Red Bull and Sauber only split by 2 points. And then a decent battle as well for 6th between Caterham and Lotus. But we're yet to find out whether anyone will be able to challenge Williams as of yet.
Yeah, I mean, Ferrari is keeping the gap reasonably comfortable. I mean, 32 points. It's less than a 1-2 finish, so it's still... I think at the moment they're trying to manage the gap more than like go for it. But I'm sure there's other kind of thinking going on at Red Bull and Sauber, which are a bit more far behind. But especially with Dan coming back at Germany, he did say he's going to be last. Everyone knows that's not true, but I think it's going to be... I don't know, Red Bull and Sauber need to catch up to Ferrari first, to then try and get to Williams. But at the moment, Williams are in the ideal position, especially with one of the strongest lineups this year.
Yeah, I think Ferrari are definitely keeping the gap between themselves and Williams very respectable, but they will have to look over their shoulder if Dan and Prost start getting some consistency. Especially at the next round, which is of course Germany. Should we have a gander at previewing that race?
Yes, Germany now.
Welcome to Germany and the Nürburgring GP circuit for the German Grand Prix. We're going to have a look at the lap here, and we're heading down towards turn 1, a bit of a downhill, and it's a very slow turn 1, going to be dropping down to first or second gear depending on the driver and the setup, and then a very tight Mickey Mouse section, very difficult this opening part of the lap, this sector 1, is really slow in comparison to the rest of the lap. Don't expect to see too much overtaking there as we now begin to get into the faster part of the circuit, making our way down towards turn 6, a fairly high-speed left-hander, a bit of a downshift and a jab of the brakes to get through there, and then some more braking to get through the slightly tighter turn 7. Bit of a medium-length run down towards the cambered corner at turn 8, bit of a hairpin, using all of the circuit on the left-hand side and getting the car hooked up for a late apex, and then heavy on the throttle as we make our way down towards the Schumacher S, turns 9 and 10, of course, flat out in these F1 cars, and with all of that downforce, down towards turn 11 now, another fairly high-speed corner, taking lots of inside curb there, which you can do, and then you want to have a great run through turn 12, as this is the highest speed part of the circuit, as you're full throttle through turn 13, barely a kink through there, and making our way down towards the chicane at turns 14 and 15, second gear corner for most cases, I would imagine, and then on the throttle again for a short period of time before coming to the final corner, turn 16, and using a bit too much curb on this lap, but accelerating now towards the finish line, and that is a lap of the Nürburgring.
Obviously, Nürburgring, sadly it's not Hockenheim. I prefer Hockenheim, so if you do prefer Nürburgring, well done to you. Yeah, Nürburgring, we had some interesting races, especially last year, which was kind of a mess. The gaggle for fourth place, no one really wanted to finish fourth, but James ended up finishing there with his Ferrari, your season 11 commentator and streamer. But I don't know, Nürburgring is one of the tracks maybe better than China to give us good battles, but I don't know, what's your point of view on the Nürburgring circuit?
Well, it's a really nice track. Obviously, in general, it's a legendary track in real life. As far as the game's concerned, you got some pretty decent overtaking opportunities down into the chicane towards the end of the lap, the hairpin right at the start of the lap off the home straight. It's not one that I've driven in a very long time on an F1 game, certainly, but it's a very challenging track. There's lots of different types of corners, some slow ones like the first corner, and the chicane towards the end of the lap, the mid-speed corners towards the middle of the lap, a few quick ones as well, and obviously we all know and love that last corner. I can't remember what it's called actually, but with the pit wall on the inside, which I'm sure has caught out many a driver in the past, a bit like Hungary, in the last corner at Hungary. It is a challenging track, and I expect quite a bit of action, especially if we get some changeable conditions. I don't know if we've had any in the past. I'm sure we'll find that out later in the facts section, but it should be a good race because it's a track that I'm sure the majority of people like.
Yeah, I think it allows good racing, although you really need to feel comfortable because it's a more technical track than maybe China. So it's you need to be a good driver overall, but you also need to really be on a good car to challenge for the highest positions, because if you don't, you might struggle a bit, especially if the rain comes. That might be a big issue to the drivers, but since you mentioned, we should take now a look at the facts, and starting with the first one, this will be the 4th time AOR goes to Nürburgring, while Hockenheim hosted the German Grand Prix in 3 occasions, season 5, 6 and 9.
Yeah, well, of course, the German Grand Prix for a little bit alternated between Hockenheim and Nürburgring. I don't think that still happens. In fact, I'm not even sure the German Grand Prix is on the calendar anymore for F1. But back in sort of 2012, 2013, even 2014, the actual track alternated between Nürburgring and Hockenheim, so I suppose it's no real surprise that we've got a bit of a split in terms of the tracks that it's held at. You've obviously said that you prefer Hockenheim to Nürburgring, and just for the balance of argument, I'll say I prefer Nürburgring to Hockenheim, even though to drive Hockenheim is just so much easier.
Yeah, just to make sure we have the approval of the total of the audience.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. No one can accuse us of being biased for this episode. But anyway, moving on to fact number 2 then, the pole sitter has won 3 times out of the 6 that we've seen races in Germany. So as opposed to China, I think it was, or there's a track we've been to so far where actually starting on pole is not the greatest of ideas as far as the statistics are concerned, but you've got a 50-50 chance of winning if you start on pole in Germany.
Yeah, it's not a bad percentage in my opinion, but still, I think, especially with the pack we had, I mean, I don't think we had, except maybe alright, we had Brazil and US, but still, pole position doesn't seem to mean a lot with this grid, and I think that's good, because it means we have a lot more going on the races. But I don't know. Personally, I don't think the pole sitter will win in Nürburgring this time around.
Oh, that's a big statement. That's a big statement this early on. We haven't even got to the predictions yet, and we're already flying things out like that.
Yeah. But anyway, going to fact number 3, only for one time out of the 5 we have on record, a British driver wasn't on pole. Now, we are in Germany, we're not in Britain. What is going on with this?
Well, it's exactly what's been going on for the entire fact section so far on this talk show's history. Britain, for some reason, is just fairly dominant in this league. And I suppose that settles it again, but British drivers clearly seem to like being on pole, and I think there's probably a fairly decent chance that's going to continue, to be honest with you, because obviously we've got Callum, Shane, Dan, even Hammer Time if he wants to get in there somehow and take pole just for the banter. But yeah, I think we've got a pretty decent chance of that record continuing, even though the likes of Maz Ice, Pepper, and a few others will be hoping to change that, perhaps.
Yeah.
But anyway, the fourth fact then is 4 times we've had a team manage to put their 2 drivers on the podium in Germany, and that's been Toro Rosso in Season 5, Williams in Season 6, McLaren in Season 9, and Lotus in Season 10, which is, I would have thought that's probably the most times that's ever happened in this league's history as far as a track is concerned, because we don't tend to get teams sticking 2 cars on the podium that often. As far as the facts are concerned, though, again, that could happen easily with Williams this year.
Yeah, and it's still interesting that they were all different teams as well.
Yeah.
3 British teams and 1 Italian, of course, with Toro Rosso. But yeah, it was the first 2 leagues we have on record and the last 2. And I'm not sure if that means anything, but neither of those were on F1 2013 for Season 7 and 8, which were the first we raced in Nürburgring. But obviously Season 10 that changed with Lotus, but nevertheless, as you said, we have a good chance of that happening with Williams, but maybe with Ferrari and Red Bull as well.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, both Ferrari drivers have finished on the podium at least once. Both Red Bull drivers have. Has Dan finished on the podium this season? I know Professional has.
Well,
yeah, Dan
finished
has twice.
Yeah,
Dan,
but Professional got on the other race, so
yeah, in Austin. So there's definitely the possibility of that happening. Both teams having scored a podium before, so I don't see why not.
Yeah. Going, however, for the next fact, and that's Williams is the only team with 2 wins at Germany, followed by Red Bull, Toro Rosso, Force India, and McLaren with 1. Where is the Ferrari?
I know. Eventually we'll get a fact about Ferrari, I'm sure. In fact, we have, because I can see the next one. Spoiler alert. But anyway, yeah, Williams, maybe that's a bit of an omen. Williams do seem to like this track, the only team, of course, with 2 wins. But we've got Red Bull in the championship still. We don't have Toro Rosso, Force India, or McLaren represented in Season 11, which is a bit of a shame. So only Red Bull can change that statistic. In terms of getting a second win, and obviously we might, never know. You might see Williams get a third, you might see Ferrari get a first, Sauber get a first, Sevalista might come in and grab another one for Lotus or something. I don't know, but yeah, it's interesting. It could be an omen for Williams.
Yeah.
The 6th fact then, similar to the US and China, Ferrari is yet to achieve a podium at Germany, with their best result being a 4th place in Season 10. So close yet so far for Ferrari. Surely one of these records has got to be broken. And obviously with Ferrari having got 2 podiums this season so far, I don't see why that can't change this time.
Yeah. I mean, they already broke the US and China records.
Oh yeah, of course, because Mazais in China, and then in Austin, who got the? Yeah, no one got a podium in Austin, but yeah, Mazais getting a podium in China, that completely broke it, didn't it? I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, I think the Ferrari drivers will be looking forward to break this one as well, especially taking into consideration the championship fight. So.
Yeah. I think a podium at least is definitely needed to close in the gap in the Constructors' Championship.
Indeed, but nevertheless, going for fact number 7, and this one is Dan related because I thought, you know, since he's coming back, I think it's a good way of welcoming Dan back to the league. The German Grand Prix of Season 10 was the first and only so far Grand Prix where Dan has a fastest lap.
Wow. Whatever? That's Dan's only fastest lap?
Yep.
Wow. That's and I'm saying that as a compliment because I expected him to have more, given the quality of him as a driver. But that's a good omen then as well, because Dan clearly has pace at the German Grand Prix. Although, what track would that have been? Would that have been Hockenheim?
No, Season 10 was Nürburgring.
Okay, alright, that's a good omen. We've got some brilliant omens going on, one for Williams and one for Dan, so yeah. Hopefully for him, his fastest lap comes in qualifying, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, 8th fact then for today. Nervo Tank is the only driver to have done a Grand Slam in Germany in Season 9 with his Williams at Hockenheim. AKA he got pole, fastest lap, and obviously the race win. I think we had one of those, didn't we, in America?
US, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm guessing it's not something that happens very often.
Curiously, it was a Williams as well.
Oh, that's, you see, that's back in the favour of Williams now. That's a 2-1 swing. Williams have got 2 omens. Dan's got 1. Ferrari have got one because of breaking the podium record. But we'll see how that goes.
Okay, so going to fact number 9, our penultimate fact of the episode, there was always at least one British driver in the podium at Germany, and they managed to get a full British podium there twice.
Full British podium. Dear God, it just never ends, does it? This British takeover of the championship. I don't think there's much more that we can say, to be honest with you, about it. But wow, I'm guessing that's never happened to any other nationality in the league where you've got actually, a full podium, sorry, of that nationality.
Oh no,
twice as well, twice at one Grand Prix. Jesus Christ!
It just sounds scary, doesn't it?
It is scary. It's a nightmare for everyone else, not Brits. It's fine for us, but it's a nightmare for everyone else. But anyway, yeah. The final fact then. In Season 10, we had the closest qualifying session ever. Well, at this track anyway. The top 5 were covered by 0.2 seconds, and the gap between pole and second place was just 8 thousandths of a second. That's not bad, is it? That probably translates to about, I don't know, 3 centimetres out on track, something like that. But the top 5 covered by 0.2 seconds. That's ridiculously close. If we get a session as close as that this time, we're probably in for a very good race.
I mean, Season 10 seemed to have been the season where it was just very close qualifying. If you remember, US, 28,000 separating the top 4, 14,000 separating first and second. Now, first and second are separated by 8,000.
Yeah.
So, I even doubt that there has been any closer gap between pole and second.
No,
to be honest,
that's a ridiculously small gap. They really knew how to test the stopwatches in Season 10, didn't they? Jesus Christ. Well, that's a pretty decent fact that I suppose to end on in terms of the preview for the German Grand Prix. What we've got to do now is make our wildly wrong predictions for the race, I suppose.
Indeed, and should I start?
Yeah, go on then, because you've already hinted at something that you're going to be suggesting in your
the pole won't win.
Yeah, well.
For pole position then, why not? Let's put Dan on pole position. When I don't really want to say any of the Williams will win because I don't want that, but I genuinely think Callum will win. And maybe followed by Dan and Pepper.
Okay, alright. That's a solid prediction. I am going to do a pretty similar one, in all honesty, actually. But I'm going to go for a different poll. So you said Dan for pole.
Yeah.
In the Red Bull. I'm going to go for Callum for pole in the Williams. Because I think he's had pretty damn decent one-lap pace all year. But, as you suggested, I don't think the pole man's going to win the race. I think Dan... well, actually, realistically, I think Callum will win. But just because I want this to happen, I'm going to say Dan. Because wouldn't it just be nice if he got the win on his return? It would also make the championship a lot closer as well. Yeah. From that sort of third down to... well, second, really, down to sixth gaggle. Well, in fact, depending on where Shane finished, it would be first down to sixth gaggle, actually. Callum second, and Shane in third is my prediction.
So you're putting, yet again, 2 Williams on the podium. That's interesting.
Yes. That prediction's going to change. I do want a Ferrari of some sort to finish on the podium. The problem is there's just so many good drivers that could finish on the podium. Yeah. It's basically impossible to decide, because if Prost actually manages to finish a race, he should be right up there. He has a 100% finish to podium ratio. Dan, obviously, both the Williamses, both the Ferraris. Don't think Brown has a podium yet, but he's been there or thereabouts in pretty much every race, unless he's had an incident at some stage. But yeah, that's what I'm going to go for. So Callum pole, Dan win, then Callum and Shane second and third.
Yeah. And of course, don't forget to tell us your predictions for German Grand Prix. And before we wrap up this episode, we have 2 things we need to tell you. Obviously, after the German Grand Prix, it's the break week, and I'm sure Niran is thanking all the gods for that. But
day before an exam, couldn't have been better.
But due to that break week, there will be no talk show next week. So we'll come back in 2 weeks' time, where we'll still review the German Grand Prix and preview the almighty British Grand Prix. That will be interesting. But
there were 17 Brits on the podium in one race.
If that's what I actually find for the top facts, I'll be so done. But
that's the AOR Talkshow done if that happens.
Yeah, I give up for 1 week on the talk show. Not talking about British, but yeah, that's the first thing we wanted to talk about. And the second thing is that we might or may not have an announcement to make next time we are here, isn't it, Niran?
Yes, that is the case. We can't disclose what that announcement is going to be, otherwise we wouldn't be announcing it next time. However, it is a pretty sick idea. Pepper brought it to me about a week ago, or a few days ago, something like that. And if we can pull it off, then it's going to be very exciting. Unfortunately, I don't particularly have the time to do it because I've got exams coming up. But certainly in about 2 talk shows from now, that should be a thing. And we'll announce it for you next time. So let us know if you're hyped for that.
Yeah, and don't be too sad because there's no talk show next week. I'm sure there's plenty of content on Niran's channel and on my channel for you to watch. I'm sure you can spend your time there anyway. But for this talk show, it's all, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. So thank you so much for watching. And from me, it's everything. Niran.
Peace. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Get loud! That's what I feel!